Welcome to From QA Challenges to Innovation with Prez, where quality challenges spark innovation. In today's episode, we're tackling a topic that sits at the very heart of modern organizational dynamics: the delicate balance between rigorous, data-driven test frameworks and agile experimentation. We'll explore how leading companies navigate this tension to turn persistent QA roadblocks into scalable solutions. From risk appetite to sandbox environments and the culture of psychological safety, we'll uncover the metrics, mindsets, and methodologies that empower organizations to innovate without compromising on quality. In just a moment, our two co-hosts will join us to deliver well-balanced, respectful insights, weaving together structured thinking and forward-looking strategies. They'll discuss how industry giants like McLaren, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, and BMW have successfully integrated QA with innovation, as well as the lessons learned from those who struggled. These insights promise to be invaluable for any QA leader or innovator looking to drive measurable results in their own organizations. So, whether you're seeking ways to define your risk appetite or curious about fostering a culture that encourages calculated risks, you're in the right place. Get ready for a thought-provoking dialogue between Debra and Dr. Thinkman. Here we go.
All right, everybody, I'm your host, Debra, and today we're diving into a fascinating tension that exists in almost every organization: how to balance quality assurance with innovation. Joining me is our special guest, innovation expert Dr. Thinkman from PrizGuru. Dr. Thinkman, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Debra. I'm excited to unpack this topic because it's something I see companies struggling with daily. We call it the QA Innovator's Dilemma: how to be both the guardian of compliance and a driving force for innovation.
That sounds like a tough balancing act. I've always thought of QA as the department that makes sure everything runs smoothly and according to plan. How does innovation fit into that picture?
That's exactly the dilemma. By definition, QA teams are focused on reliability, safety, and eliminating defects. They're the ones making sure products meet standards and processes don't fail. But innovation often requires experimentation, which means accepting some level of uncertainty and risk. These values can seem completely at odds.
I can imagine that creates some tension. Do you have any examples of when this tension has actually hurt companies?
Absolutely. A classic example comes from Japanese high-tech manufacturers. They became so focused on eliminating every single quality issue before releasing new technologies that they actually fell behind more risk-tolerant competitors.
Interesting. Who were they losing out to?
American firms like Apple, who were willing to introduce new products like the iPod, even though they weren't completely perfect at launch. The iPod had some minor flaws, but customers embraced it anyway because the innovation was so compelling. The Japanese manufacturers missed this lesson by waiting too long for perfection.
So sometimes good enough beats perfect but late?
Exactly. Another striking example is 3M, the company that gave us Post-it notes and countless other innovations. In the early 2000s, they implemented Six Sigma, an extremely strict quality control program, in their R&D department.
And I'm guessing that didn't go well for innovation?
You've got it. Their rate of breakthrough products plummeted. Six Sigma favored careful planning and consistency, which ended up favoring incremental improvements over disruptive innovations. One 3M scientist famously said that under such a system, there was no way in the world that anything like a Post-it note would ever emerge.
That's pretty powerful. So how can companies tell if their QA teams have become too cautious?
There are several warning signs. If your QA team's default answer to new ideas is no, if they're constantly delaying product launches until absolute certainty while competitors leap ahead, or if there's a culture where employees fear blame for any failure, you're likely too risk-averse.
Makes sense. But QA's job is to protect customers and the business, right? You can't just throw caution to the wind.
Absolutely not. It's about finding the right balance. Many innovative companies define what we call their risk appetite, essentially asking, how much risk are we willing to take for innovation? This signals that some degree of failure is acceptable in pursuit of progress.
I like that approach. So, what are some practical ways companies can create space for innovation without endangering their core operations?
One of the most effective methods is creating what we call sandbox or pilot environments. Controlled settings where new ideas can be tested on a small scale, isolated from critical production.
So, like a safe playground for experimentation?
Exactly. Before overhauling an entire production line, a factory might run a trial on just one machine to gather data. This creates a safe space to fail fast. If something's going to fail, it fails in the sandbox, not in front of customers.
Fail fast sounds a bit reckless. Isn't that promoting carelessness?
Great question, Debra. Failing fast doesn't mean being careless or compromising on safety. It means running disciplined, quick experiments, and learning from them. The emphasis is on the learning. A failure in a pilot isn't a true failure if it teaches you how to refine the idea.
That makes more sense. Are there industries where this is particularly challenging?
Definitely, in safety-critical industries like aerospace or medical devices, any fail-fast approach must be confined to appropriate test environments with clear safeguards. Boeing's flawed 737 MAX testing process stands as a cautionary tale. Testing innovations in the wrong context can be disastrous.
Yikes, that's a sobering example. So, what's the right approach?
The right approach is to simulate and pilot. Try new processes in a low-risk setting, monitor results closely, and have fail-safes in place. Many companies also implement incremental rollouts, releasing a new software feature to only 5% of users, for instance, and scaling up only after issues are resolved.
That makes a lot of sense. What about the cultural side of things? I imagine you need the right environment for people to feel comfortable taking these calculated risks.
Culture is absolutely crucial here. Leaders must cultivate an environment where taking thoughtful risks and admitting mistakes is accepted, even encouraged. Harvard professor Amy Edmondson calls this psychological safety, a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes.
I've heard that term before. So, in practice, how do leaders create that kind of environment?
They can start by normalizing failure as part of innovation. Elon Musk famously said about SpaceX, "Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough." In a QA context, this doesn't mean accepting poor quality for customers. It means internally, during development and testing, teams should push systems to their limits to make them better.
That's a great quote. I suppose it's about changing how we view failure, not as something to hide, but as valuable data.
Precisely, many high-reliability organizations like those in aviation and healthcare adopt what's called a just culture, where individuals are not punished for honest mistakes, but are expected to report them so the team can learn and improve.
Let's get concrete for a moment. Do you have examples of companies that have successfully navigated this balance and seen real innovation payoffs?
I've got several fascinating examples. One of my favorites comes from Formula One racing. In 1981, McLaren introduced a carbon fiber monocoque chassis in their race cars. At the time, this was considered extremely risky. Carbon fiber was an unproven material for structural safety.
I can imagine that raised some eyebrows in quality circles.
It absolutely did. Many experts doubted it was a material suited to racing cars, but McLaren's QA and engineering team took a calculated gamble, meticulously testing prototype parts. The result changed automotive history. The McLaren MP41 not only won races, but defined the sport as we know it now, and the technology has since helped save countless lives in crashes due to its superior strength.
So, what was once seen as an unacceptable risk actually became a quality breakthrough. That's pretty incredible.
Exactly. We see similar stories in pharmaceuticals. Vertex Pharmaceuticals took a bold step in 2015 when they got FDA approval to produce a cystic fibrosis drug called Orkambi using continuous manufacturing instead of traditional batch production.
What made that so innovative?
It was the first ever medicine approved with end-to-end continuous manufacturing. This required retraining staff, investing in real-time monitoring technologies, and working closely with regulators to prove reliability. The payoff was substantial. Production time reduced from weeks to days with enhanced product consistency and quality.
These examples are fascinating, but they seem like big, dramatic innovations. What about companies that are just trying to make incremental improvements? Is there a lesson there too?
Absolutely. Take BMW's quality control innovation. They began embracing artificial intelligence to detect defects on their assembly lines. A somewhat risky approach given AI's black box nature.
I imagine there was skepticism about that too.
There was. People wondered, would the AI miss subtle issues or create false alarms? Through careful sandbox testing, BMW's QA validated the system and then deployed it more broadly. The outcome was improved defect detection rates and fewer false positives, saving time and cost.
It sounds like there's a pattern here. Test carefully in a controlled environment, gather evidence, and then roll out more broadly.
You've nailed it, Debra. That's the essence of calculated experimentation. And we saw perhaps the most dramatic example during the COVID-19 pandemic with mRNA vaccines.
Oh, that's right. Those were developed incredibly quickly, weren't they?
Prior to 2020, no mRNA vaccine had ever been licensed. But when the pandemic struck, companies like BioNTech, Pfizer, and Moderna, along with regulators, took calculated risks to accelerate R&D and testing. They ran some trial phases in parallel, scaled up manufacturing at risk before final approval, and leveraged new QA techniques to ensure safety.
And the result was vaccines in under a year instead of the usual decade or so.
Exactly. It was an unprecedented QA challenge, but it paid off and saved lives. This showcased how, with extraordinary safeguards and collaboration, even high-stakes industries can dramatically speed up innovation.
These stories are so inspiring. It seems like QA teams that embrace innovation, wisely, can actually help their companies make incredible leaps forward.
That's the key insight. Every time a QA team successfully shepherds a high-risk innovation to success, it reinforces the idea that quality and innovation are complementary, not adversaries. Quality professionals see that proactively enabling new ideas can enhance quality in the long run.
So, what's the takeaway for our listeners who work in quality assurance or innovation?
I'd say three things. First, recognize when risk aversion has gone from prudent to counterproductive. Second, create safe avenues for experimentation through sandboxes, pilots, and incremental rollouts. And third, cultivate a culture that treats failures as learning opportunities.
And for leadership?
Leaders need to explicitly define their organization's risk appetite, model the right behaviors by normalizing learning from failure, and provide the resources for safe experimentation. They should remember that in today's fast-moving markets, the bigger risk may actually be not innovating at all.
That's such a powerful point. The biggest risk is taking no risks at all.
Exactly. Quality assurance professionals are uniquely positioned to ensure that innovation is done responsibly, but also that it is done. The next breakthrough product or process will likely come from a team that found just the right balance between caution and creativity.
Dr. Thinkman, this has been incredibly insightful. I think our listeners will walk away with a new perspective on how quality and innovation can work together rather than against each other. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just that this isn't a zero-sum game. By understanding the natural tension between quality and innovation, and then intentionally managing it, organizations can get the best of both worlds. The question isn't whether to prioritize quality or innovation. It's how to build systems that support both.
Well said! Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And to our listeners, think about how you might apply these insights in your own workplace. Are there opportunities for safe experimentation? Could your QA processes be more innovation-friendly? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, this is Dr. Thinkman signing off. Thanks for tuning in. That brings us to the end of today's discussion. We explored the intricate balance between quality assurance and innovation, sharing insights on managing risk, fostering a culture of experimentation, and learning from successful cases across industries. If you found value in our conversation, please like, comment, and share. Stay tuned for more perspectives on From QA Challenges to Innovation with Prisons.